And more on our top stories, Singapore's new strategy to teach innovation and design in schools. How will the syllabus look like? What will design-centric classes be like? To answer that and more, we have with us Cheaw Hwei. He's chairman of the Design Education Advisory Committee, and Dawn Lim. She's executive director of the DesignSingapore Council. Thanks so much for coming in this evening, both of you.
Thank you.
I'll start with you, Mr. Low. Embedding design thinking into our education. Education in itself, one would imagine, involves active design all the time. So when you do this, what are you doing differently?
Well, I think the approach, it's about really, how do we sort of introduce creative problem solving into the schools. And I think the introduction of design thinking, which is a form of creative problem solving, basically offers not just an alternative but a complementary way of thinking. So as we know, design thinking essentially encourages the problem solver to ask questions, to probe, and is very much a user-centric approach to problem solving. This is very different from the linear thinking, right, that we are known, that we're used to, the rote learning and trying to find answers from the book. But in design thinking, it actually also takes on the activity of prototyping your ideas very quickly.
Okay, I want to turn to Ms. Lim right here. Now, we're hearing a great number of buzzwords then from Mr. Low. How, as a way of thinking, thinking is by definition, I would think, user-centric. So if you implement what Mr. Low wants in our education system, what does that look like?
So let's take a look, right? For a lot of organizations, businesses, even government agencies today, when we think about the products and the services that they put out, a lot of times it's designed around the organization's systems and processes and from the organization's perspective. But some of the best products and services out there, if you think about Dyson, Apple, Singapore Airlines experience, they have made some of the best products and experiences because they put the user, the client, the buyer at the center of the entire design process. And what we're trying to do with design education is to bring that skill to everybody coming through the education system, such that over generations, we're creating creative thinkers, problem solvers that can do that at scale.
Can you create a creative thinker, Mr. Low?
Well, it's something that is not to be taught in that sense, but I think definitely that's what we're advocating, that it should be something that is to be experienced and to be learned, right, by students especially, and we are focusing that they should do it as young as possible. And that's what we did with the prototype, where we brought in primary school students together with secondary school students, right, to take on what we call a national design project, right, to have them experience what is some of the elements, right, in terms of experiential problem solving. And there they learn, right? So it is more of through experience, right, through working with other people, with other students as well, that they picked up this form of creative thinking, which is an alternative, right, again, more than an alternative to what they are used to, right, trying to find answers from the book, for example. Right.
And we see, I think, to add to that, we see design as a life skill. The same way you learn math and science, biology as foundational subjects in school to help you understand the world, we think that same for design. It's a life skill that helps you approach problems in a different way than we are used to. And if you look at the kind of problems that we will face, the challenges, it's more and more complex, and you do need a different way to approach them from what we're used to before.
Okay, back to Ms. Lim, and let's pick up what you say. So it's an approach to learning.
Yeah.
Okay. One imagines that they are non-design courses. For the very reason we have a design course means they are non-design courses. Yes. Right. So the design course is meant to change even how you approach the non-design course. Now, we've met before, we've interviewed you before, Mr. Low,
right,
so
yes.
We've had a term 1, and this is now term 2, right?
That's right.
So in that time, what have you learned from implementing this approach approach to thinking and learning in the first term. Now you've got your term to report in front of you.
That's right. I think since we last met, right, from term 1 to term 2, over a period of 2 years, where we have actually started some prototypes to really instill this creative problem solving into the IHLs, the Institute of Higher Learnings. Actually, what we have seen is actually that the IHLs have started to also implement courses as well that touch on interdisciplinary needs. And that means that there is a fundamental sort of embedding of design thinking or creative problem solving, as we would much prefer to call it, right, across the course. So you see that that take-up rate is going, and as I was mentioning just now with the national the design project, where more than 300 students across 30 over schools, right, got the opportunity to experience this. And what is very motivating is that some of these schools actually went on, right, to continue with that course as an elective, right? So after experiencing it, the students, the teachers, and the schools felt that, well, there is a benefit, right, to introduce this new problem-solving tool, right, to the kids, right? And they're adopting it. So we are seeing that adoption, right? Maybe starting from the fringe, but we hope that it starts to then slowly come into the mainstream as a form of learning.
I would add, perhaps it's even more than a fringe. With the Learning by Design program, that's complementary to the proposals put up by the committee here, we have worked with more than 70 schools and more than 3,700 students over the last 2 years, where we've brought design programs to the schools. The students identify problems, challenge statements in the school or in the community that the school is in, and they work on them. They use the design process, design methodology, and apply that on a real-world life problem. And so we see that the return interest is very real, because they can see how the students are empowered.
Okay, very quickly, both of you, before we wrap up, all these things that you teach, they then have to face the real world. If the real world does not encourage genuine challenge, genuine creative thinking, there's absolutely no point in encouraging in schools. Are we giving the right kind of environment after they leave the schools? First yourself and then yourself, very quickly.
Well, absolutely. I think, in fact, the industry out there, right, the world is changing so fast, in fact, that you require creativity to maneuver, right, and to really understand what is being brought to the fore in terms of, for example, like in finance, right, we've got examples where the banks are actually employing designers, right, to create better customer experiences. Healthcare is another example as well. So definitely there is a need, more than a demand, there is an absolute need, right, especially in the very transformative world that we are in, right, that we can no longer sort of rely on the usual way of finding solutions.
Yeah, absolutely agree. I think we can see that good design is good business. Because it makes better products.
The market rewards it.
Exactly.
Yes.
And so there's going to be a continuous reward for such skills, because companies do want to continue innovating and staying competitive. And that's also what's going to keep Singapore on the map.
Oh, thanks so much for coming in this evening and
Thank you for having us.
That was Cheaw Hwei. He's from the Design and Education Advisory Committee, and Miss Dawn Lim. She's from the Design Singapore Council. Thank you for coming in this evening.